Welcome to the Stoa. The Stoa is a digital campfire where we cohere and dialogue about what matters most at the knife's edge of what's happening now. All right, let's do some check-ins. Feeling good. I feel like a lot of lightness, energy, strength, and a sense of readiness. So welcome to the Stoa. I am the steward of the Stoa, Peter Limberg, and the Stoa is a place for us to cohere and dialogue about what matters most at the knife's edge of this moment. Today we have Ria Baeck, and okay, good. I have mild dyslexia, so I mispronounce things often. So I dance for people with names that I'm not used to saying. And so today, Ria is going to be engaging in an exercise that she discovered called collective presencing. And just briefly, Teresa, on the website, collective presencing, an emerging human capacity, what becomes possible when we are truly present together. And if you were here on the last session on Wednesday, we had a discussion more of a presentation on it and some questions and Q&A on it. And this practice is all about the question, finding that right question. And so, I don't really know how it's going to be structured other than having 90 minutes here together. You can leave anytime, but we are scheduled for 90 minutes. And so that being said, I will hand it over to Ria, and then we can begin.
Okay, welcome everybody, and thanks for the invitation, Peter. Collective presencing is basically not a practice you can do in 1 hour or 1.5 hours. So what we will do is something small, a small attempt to actually try if we can get to that place of where we can all be really present and where maybe the conversation and the dialogue actually can be generative, because that's what we actually do. So a collective presencing is basically a practice of collective inquiry. So it's not, or it's different in its purpose than, let's say, circling or some other we-based practices, where being seen and belonging and the emotional is very important, or is the ultimate purpose, even in its subtleties. Collective presencing builds on that. So it's not that we don't do that, but the purpose is to go beyond and to actually try to be all present to a question that really matters. And from being present, being able to collectively come to new insights and new actions. That's basically the purpose of it. I've been writing a whole book about it after, let's say, 6 or 7 years of action research. I'm not going into all the details because that would lead us way too far, of course. And we will try through applying some of the principles to see if we can actually be in that space of what Otto Scharmer calls this generative dialogue, or what we call the collective, being collectively present. So it will be a conversation, a dialogue, a circle practice that actually will go pretty slow. And how I structured it, it's we will do a check-in round where everybody can speak, answering a question. And after that check-in, let's say everybody has like almost a minute, so that at least after 20, 30 minutes, we can actually dive into the dialogue. In the check-in round, we will use what we call a talking piece, as is practice in circle practice, and that's where we build upon. That's where we started when we started this long-term process of figuring this out. So how we do that online is you just say like, I pick up the talking piece, and when you're done, you just name, I put it back, or I'm done, or checked in, or just make sure that you announce when you pick it up and you announce when you put it down. So let's start with a check-in, meaning because we attach quite some importance to that everybody, actually every voice can be heard. And even if it's short, I think it would be nice to actually hear from each other, like, what attracted you to be here now, to spend this 1.5 hours? So we're not doing the check-in in a way of, oh, I'm such and such and I live there and this is my profession. Of course you can say your name, but I think we see all names. But important is that we try already in the check-in to enter let's say a layer deeper or more authentic or more closer to what really matters to us. And so my invitation is to answer this, like, what attracted you to be here now? Short, not long stories, because otherwise we don't have time for the dialogue itself. But it can be a good dive in already for what will come next. So whoever feels like starting, you can just unmute yourself. I guess that you can do that. And start from there. And silence is also fine. We can also slow it down and just be in the silence, which is also fun. Okay, go ahead.
I'll start. Hi, Ria. I've done a little bit of work with Ria in the past, and I used to do a lot of collective presencing like practices, space practices. Went away to do some heavy emotional lifting and kind of left presencing a little bit on the shelf. And I want to reconnect with that, with this inquiry. So glad to be here. Thank you.
I can go. I have a little delay on my satellite internet, so I apologize when I interrupt. It's not intentional. I've been doing some work with Bonita Roy, and she pointed me in this direction, and I'm reading your book, and it just feels very home. It feels like something either I have known for a long time, and also something that has, it's being called, not just because of these political times or anything else, but there's just something essential about it that is wanting to spread. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Please follow on, whoever feels called.
I've been practicing circling for a few years, and I'm also very drawn to the name collective presencing. I haven't read your book. I was at the talk on Wednesday, and yeah, the name really called to me.
I've been interested in collective intelligence and collective wisdom for a very long time. And and the recent conversations that have been popping up around it have been very stimulating. I've dived really deep with John Vervaeke's work and the work, the Stoa, Rebel Wisdom, and a lot of other, something that's coming up, and the virus pause also seems to be doing something very distinct with a synchronization of a collective awareness and also a deepening awareness of me listening to the stillness that holds me. And so finding practices that give me a better relationship to my deeper self are very attractive to me. So that's what drew me here.
Hi, Ria. Thank you for this offering. I sort of feel like I'm in David's slipstream from just the movement of people like David and Donna and Kim and Nancy and a few other people I recognize, of just feeling pulled forward to expand the depth of what we've gathered and garnered and accumulated from many practices, and looking for also that interaction where our sort of collective intuition can move us into wholesome enactment. So thank you.
I find myself curious about the correlation between collective presencing and group flow state. And I'm wondering if they are very much, yeah, like related or intertwined. And yeah, so I'm just curious about the relationship between those two, and if collective presencing can bring about group flow state, and yeah, how those interact with one another.
I attended your talk a day back, I think, on Stoa, and you'd used two words which came up in a lot of my personal inquiries, which was generativity and elegance, and both of them resonated a lot. So the next elegant step was something that crystallized a lot for me. So I was very curious about it.
I came here today because I'm sensing a really strong feeling of emotional resonance collectively among my neighbors and friends and some new people I've met here and elsewhere, which is why I'm here as well.
Hi everyone. I'm interested in the group think aspect of everything. But I don't know, I just want to share sort of where my head's at right now, because I'm sort of trying to hold various perspectives of the situation at large, as far as the relative tranquility of my immediate surroundings and, you know, the potential suffering of people around the world, and holding that empathy at a distance. So it's good to tap into everyone else's experiences and awareness and feelings, and so hopefully I can integrate some of the various juxtaposing minds in my own mind. So
I'm feeling nervous. My heart is beating really fast. And I've never done something like this before. But I could have done something, but something felt right to be here. So I'm like proud of myself that I'm here. And yeah, this is my first kind of circling event, and I don't know what it's going to be like, but yeah, I'm glad that I'm here.
I'm glad Camille's here. I am here as a a student of the campfire, it feels like, and interested in becoming a deeper listener, becoming more patient, and also becoming more skillful as a communicator, and looking forward to gathering around physical campfires, physical flames, and yeah, looking forward to that and putting logs on that fire, building energy toward that. Also, I'm interested in creating music, songs, lyrics about my experiences around the campfire. And so I feel like I feel very like I'm absorbing knowledge and information and lessons from you all, and really happy to be here.
I am here. I'm Jonathan, by the way. I'm on my mom's iPad, but I don't know how to change the name. I'm here because about a month and a half ago, I mistyped the URL someone sent me, and instead of going to the page that they wanted me to go to, I found the Collective Presencing book. And it was very serendipitous because it was like, I think very much the book I've been looking for, especially I just came back from some travels and I had a lot of experiences that I was having trouble making sense of, and the book helped me make sense of that. And so I'm very curious about this practice and the energetics of allowing as it shows up in the practice, I imagine.
Jonathan actually introduced me to your book, Ria, and it seems to tie up so many different components of life that I'm exploring. I found like rebel wisdom, and then the Stoa, and then now you're here. So it seems like different parts of my life is just coming to one. I'm very curious about the concept and the experience of emergence. So that's why I'm here.
Hey, I appreciate you hosting this, Ria. I don't feel like I know much about it, but I looked over the chapters of the book and the different section headings, and it seemed very interesting. And I'm curious to know how this might be valuable for building a group of people, an intentional group of people or team to work on something that feels meaningful and being able to better connect and be cohesive in that group. That's, yeah.
My motivations and inspirations were sort of triggered by James there, or it reminded me of why I'm here. I sort of am curious about the building of intentional groups and of bringing collective presence into groups I'm already a part of, and being able to introduce elements of that to relationships that I have, so that they can be a little more emergent, present, aware, those kind of things.
Hello, everyone. Wonderful to be with you all. And thank you, Ria. I'm here, I think my heart just drew me here through coming from various we-space practices, and really with a deep interest in how to really move more in my day-to-day life from emergence.
First of all, I will apologize because you cannot see my face. I will arrange that better next time. My motivation for being here is also exploration and curiosity. So it's like I come here from recommendation, and I see it as an orientation into this concept in your book. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. The reason I'm here is, well, basically curiosity and trust. Because wherever I go, if something piques my interest, I seem to get something from it, even though if I don't know exactly what it's going to be. And if it's done by people I trust, it's a very highly likelihood that it's going to be something of value. Even if it's a reiteration of something that I've heard somewhere, it's kind of strengthening that sense of knowing. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brandon. I'm also feeling quite a bit anxious and nervous, so thank you, Camille, for opening the door to sharing that. I appreciate that. It's also nice to see a few familiar faces as well. I have been involved in quite a bit of insight dialogue practice, and in that work, I've been interested in how every pairing, every partnership that I've been in that practice has brought up something novel every time, and it feels totally different every time. So I'm curious in seeing how adding more people and how the different combinations and permutations of people, how just changing little elements might bring up something new.
There's a couple of people left.
Yeah, I'm also, I find my heart beats really fast when I encounter these situations. I'm really feeling the opportunity right now in how our normal has been disrupted. There's this really rich, fertile learning space potential. And I can feel it. I felt really affected, Ria, when you said we need to fall in love with potential. So I'm like, yeah, I feel like, oh, like I'm in this new love relationship or something. So it's making my heart beat fast. Yeah, the sense of there being kind of a lot at stake, and then like how do we hold all those energies and feel each other and breathe together in this new space, so that we can create a context where we can make the most of this learning ground that we're in. Yeah, that's it.
I'm Donna, and I spend quite a bit of time in collective presencing and different types of we space. I read your book and resonate deeply with it. Thank you. I'm attracted to the adventurousness and the unpredictability of the collective. And what's really present with me today is a lot of uncertainty. And I'm looking forward and open to being in that uncertainty with everyone.
Yeah, hi. I'm also quite curious about how a practice of presence works online. I've also done inside dialogue, but never through the medium. So it's quite interesting to see that something carries over just by working with the introduction. So I look forward to it. Thanks.
Hello. So I've also been involved with a lot of these collective insight practices, I guess you can say, also with Bonnie these past few weeks. And I've been draining, or I'm swamped in insights, and I'm feeling overwhelmed at this point. And so next week, I'm just not doing like any Zoom calls at this point, and just taking time off to integrate, all these aha moments into my being, if that makes sense.
And yeah, I'm here because I don't know. It feels right to be here. I don't know. There's something about the energy at the SOA always, and then in these bigger spaces that that attracts me, that I like, and that's why I'm here.
Okay, I think we got everyone. Didn't make notes, but okay, Phil.
I came late and I didn't know exactly what we're doing, so I was a little scared to say anything.
The question was what attracted you to be here, and just have
Yeah.
max.
And I'm also scared of my answer too, because it's like, in some ways, it was just like, I saw your name and I was like, this is someone who I know is doing good work. Curious what it was about, and I didn't think that was enough. But I think additional context is I've been floating in the Game B space, and I've seen your name pop up a whole bunch of times. And I think just from hearing everybody's shares, it's like, oh yes, all these exact words that I'm playing around with these days around collective, around uncertainty, around emergence, and I'm just like excited to just get a taste of Ria, what you're trying to do, and see if this makes sense for me to dive a little bit deeper. Because I think the way to move into the future is not individuality, is more about the collective and trying to play with that.
I can go. So why am I here? I don't know why I'm here, but I quite enjoying being here and not knowing why. And the question that's bubbling up right now is, what is the best question to figure out why we are here?
Thanks, Peter. I think we all checked in, and actually that question that Peter raises, as he said in the beginning, finding a question that can guide a conversation or a dialogue is really an art in itself. And in our quick planning last week, Peter and I said we would do some prep on Wednesday, which didn't happen. So I went with that, and I've posted the question that we will use as a guideline for our dialogue in the chat. And the question is, taking into account the times we are in, this kind of bunch of people that we are here, what has your attention mainly? And maybe, if possible, what could be a challenging question that we could maybe work with in the future? There might be a possibility, if there's energy and appetite, that we do a series of 4 or 5 weeks in a row with the same group. So we will see at the end. But before we go into the dialogue, we already have used this talking piece thing, and it's actually on Zoom. It's actually, you all have good practice of muting yourself, so it's also visible who wants to keep quiet and who wants to speak. But as we move into a dialogue, I invite people also to speak from that place where you might not have preformed ideas about already, yeah? I invite you to speak from a place that might come up just right here and right now. And even the people who already posted the question in the chat, maybe even go deeper or wider or below, or I don't know, but what is it that you could actually bring from a space what we then try to do in collective presencing is also to invite inner knowing, intuition, and not just the thoughts we already had, not these preformed conceptual spaces, not to delete them or ignore them, but having a wisdom maybe, or a space of inquiry where everything can be present, every kind of knowing can be present. And so it means that if you unmute yourself, it might be that you don't have words the first 10 seconds, and that's fine, yeah? And or there's some silence between your sentences, and that's fine. We will know when you speak like, okay, this is, I'm done, or you mute yourself, then we see that you're done speaking. So a way of tuning into that is what we call you speak into the middle and you speak from the middle. Like imagine that we are really sitting in a circle. There is a middle somewhere. It's not like, oh, I agree with what you said. It's not that kind of conversation. It's an inquiry into what is something that we might see together, or we might see that some of the questions we are holding go in a similar direction, and maybe not. We will see. The other side is also don't censor yourself too much. Maybe you tell a story that happened this morning, or something that reminds you of, but try to sense, like, where does it come from? Does it come from your inner silence, from your inner knowing? Or is it just so, oh, I want to tell a story, yeah? Because I want to be heard or something. So just checking yourself, if you can distinguish at all, but just try to play with that, yeah? And so it's also an invitation for all of us to actually listening to the whole of what is going on. And not just the content, but also if we would sit in a circle, could you expand your attention to include like everyone? So it's not, you're not talking to me only, we're talking to each other. And you could expand your awareness to hold like the whole circle, if that is possible at all. But we will also work with, okay, somebody brings something up, a story, a question. Try to let it sink in first before there's something that comes up in you, so that we might build on each other. And sometimes it's totally different, and it seems like we take a totally different path, and that's fine too. We don't need to have a solution at the end or an agreement or anything. And silence is welcome. Maybe at some point nobody wants to speak. That's also fine. Yeah. And as a last thing, maybe, can we challenge maybe here and there some of the collective assumptions we are holding? Like that's, I think it's crucial for us to move into the new, whatever is coming, whatever is going on already. What are assumptions that hold us in a box that's too small? Yeah? And we might touch upon some, or being able to name some, but we can go beyond. And there was one question somebody asked, like, what has collective presence to do with flow state? I said it's flow state, but in the conversation, in how you talk with each other, you could come to a flow state. I'm not saying we will get there today. I don't know. But it's a different kind of energy, first of all, to kind of really listening deeply inside and deeply to each other and to the whole of the group that we are for today. With that, I think I place the virtual talking piece in the middle of the circle, and I will read out the question once more. So taking into account the times we are in and this bunch of people, what is it that has your attention at the moment? And if there is a question, what could be a challenging question for all of us to dive deeper into? So that's the invitation, and we will see where we go. I understand that some people are anxious if you have never done this, but you're free to talk, you're free to listen. But if you feel like, there seems to be something bubbling up, feel free to unmute yourself and start. And so we can start in silence and let the process go. You unmute yourself and you mute yourself, and we will see where we end up. So by 10 to the hour we need to stop, I will close the dialogue and have a short checkout round. So it's up to all of us.
If I may, what I'm noticing right now is a reiteration of a theme that I've actually had in a previous call as well, is this kind of being between the rock and the hard place of both wanting to connect deeply and at the same time being overwhelmed by kind of a multitude of streams and the complexity of the language and topics. And that immediately kind of shows me that same as in the question that I raised, still maintaining my awareness when there's so much going on around. And that draws my attention then to everybody else, because I don't really know if anybody else is experiencing the same thing as I do. And I know that nobody actually sees if I do have that experience when I'm already lost and I'm no longer following what somebody's saying. And this causes me to fear that I might be missing something of value, and it kind of, the time will pass and yet some things kind of fall between the chairs, and there's no toolage for communication about this low capacity to intake information, and maybe a requirement for a repetition or summarizing, and everything seems like kind of ad hoc. We're just kind of building everything up in the moment and chips flowing in various directions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel called, Ria. I don't know really what to say, and I think that's what your invitation was for. I'm generally someone who plans what they say before, saying anything. So this is just fun for me. I'm trying to practice this. I think right before this call, someone right before entering this call, someone said something profound to me, and I think I'll share the story. I think yesterday, someone essentially told me that, Phil, I am okay with her knowing that you will be hurt by this action and not do anything about it. And so I just got on this call asking my coach, like, is this ethical? Like, she is willing to hurt me. And like, should I have this person in my life? And he essentially said that one of the most important lessons you could learn in life is that, I wrote it down, the experience of pain and hurt is not distinct, is distinct from right and wrong. And I think it's taken me out to this like thing from a group of people here that I know called LSA or Upstart Collaboratory, which is thinking about like, what if the world doesn't have any like right or wrong? It's more like, Phil, this is a learning experience for you. And I think that's one of the questions that's on my mind right now.
Pick up the piece. I notice my mind is around an openness as I am with the people. There's a sense of my heart opens and softens and flutters a bit as I consider us. And I also feel that there's something more possible, something that I'm not looking at, that invites an even greater opening there. I would say my deepest compass is like wonder. It's where, at the deepest part of me, that the part that brings forward what I pay attention to. And it seems to interact interestingly with a sense of curiosity and doubt. I'm suspicious of any time that I'm certain, 100% sure of something, my wonder protests or my curiosity protests. And I look more deeply. What am I missing? What am I not seeing? And for the people who are here, and the deeper question that may be challenging is, who is not here? There are a number of people that I don't see almost ever represented in these particular calls. And there's a deep wondering about, what is that? I don't have a conclusion about the rightness or wrongness of it, but it's persistent. It's that silence of a component of humanity that's not being felt, not feeling the call to participate, is becoming louder. And it has me wonder, what am I not listening to there? Is there an invitation that I'm not making? Is there an invitation I'm not feeling in myself to listen to more deeply? And I feel a little frightened of what I might find if I open myself fully to that question. And I put the piece back.
I think I'll have a few words.
Oh, go for it.
Let's do this. Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, that's. Just want to respond to David. I'm getting intense imagery of the campfire and all of us sitting there with the light that we're trying to kindle. But yeah, the presence of this darkness behind our backs is definitely extremely strong. And from these circling experiences that I've had, very minimal, but you know, the analogy of the fire being something that, you know, is the warmth that brings us together. I'm also very wary of that darkness and the depth and the danger and the potential being greater in the darkness. You know, but how do you look at that in the right way? How is that incorporated? There's something about always bringing to light the assumptions and always having some kind of renewal or a cycle of birth and death that you know, building something up, breaking it down. I'm reminded of something from Vervaeke's lectures of the sand that is dripped on creates a peak but it collapses at some carrying capacity, but that fosters the, you know, a larger diameter for the new peak. So but how, you know, anyway, that's out there now.
I was interested in some of what Phil said, and the, like, what if there is no right and wrong? And I wonder about what other ways there are to think about things that aren't using the right and wrong framework, which feels to me like it appeals to some sort of authority. And one of the ones that comes to my mind is like what is the impact of any particular action, and what impact do we want to have? Yeah, and I guess I feel curious about like exploring other ways of thinking about that, or different ways of measuring that.
Yeah, for me, there's an imagery of moving past through a tunnel and sort of coming out at the other end. And there's a question of choosing to build something, but it's not entirely clear what. Something needs to emerge, something needs to be birthed. And I feel like there is a creative energy that wishes to be in service of building something, but it's not clear which way it sort of moves to.
I'm feeling a connection between that question about impact and what David shared about, and Yoshio too described it as the darkness behind us at the campfire, and all the people that aren't in the room, and sort of wondering how we can sense what's happening, what impacts are happening if they're not in the room.
Loved this, and so I'm sitting out at a Buddhist monastery and I spend a lot of time looking at trees and nature. And I'm like almost extending this to not just like who's not in the room as in people, but then also like all the like living things that are there. And like how can we listen into those and really like hear what the earth is trying to tell us?
Yeah, Phil, that brings up the sense somehow. You unleashed the sense I have of this sort of swirling energy right here with this group. And it feels like it has lots of ears and eyes. It just is coalescing within, but looking without at the same time. Like there's a response to those questions that everyone has had. And it seems really alive.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that. As I was trying to write about all this in the book, and I don't have any religious language that is meaningful for myself. I noticed that basically my, how you say, my guidance, or where I try to sense, is where do I feel that of something that is alive. And so that is way different than is it right or wrong. Of course, when you measure something, that can be right or wrong or something, but in life in general, and I would say especially in these times where so much so-called certainties fall away, what is the project? What are the people? What are the questions that bring me alive? That is what guides me, and that's what I want to try to bring into a conversation and into a dialogue. Like, where do we feel that this conversation is alive? And can we speak? Can we articulate that what is really alive in us, and not only what we think, but that what is like, yeah, that it's really alive. And I somehow hold an assumption, a belief that we have the capacities and the intelligence and the experience and blah, 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 to figure something out around this. we might be the ones who can teach others. And not everyone needs to be the teachers or the initiators of this kind of live conversations. And also, can we just witness some, because there's also, most of the time, all of the times, it's a lot of pain that we carry ourselves, even if we might be all the privileged people. If we are able to be with that, we might be able to spread it, or that's one of the beliefs I hold.
So what's coming up is asking the right question is like making love in the most spiritual way possible. And I have a strong desire to start making love.
I noticed that I've come alive or experienced this aliveness when people are speaking and sharing metaphors, as well as sharing their very personal experience. So like when the metaphor of the darkness behind us was spoken of, like there's an imagery, like a sensation of like being there and this aliveness that I experienced. Like I came into contact with the feeling of the wilderness. And then when Phil was speaking about some of his personal experiences, feeling this like tender heart connection. And then for me is like these moments with the metaphor and the feeling, that's where I felt most like I was making love. And so it's, noticing those sensations inside of me and like orienting myself toward that is juicy.
My heart is kind of pounding now, which I think means I'm supposed to say something. In these exercises, I think it's important. I try not to think of what I'm going to say. I think that's the purpose. And it occurred to me that from what people have been saying about right and wrong and the darkness and what I said earlier too, there's like some mystery out there that we are all experiencing together. And I noticed, unlike normal times, we're sharing it with each other. This morning, I had a long list of things to do as usual. I said, no, I'm gonna do something that's important. And I tried to write my wife a poem and I finished it. Of course, naturally, I thought it was good. And then I reread it and I realized that I had pivoted from trying to appreciate her, love her, to use the word, make love to her through words. I pivoted back to myself. And what I was doing in reality was, nonetheless, I was articulating, to use a word that someone else just used, I was articulating what is real. Which is, again, I think what we're all trying to do at this time is tell it like it is.
What has my attention is the life of the lovemaking that we're all engaged in, and the impact of each person's input, outpouring directs the collective lovemaking life. What also has my attention is how all the rectangles on the screen appear to be like beating hearts. and there's a drawing into each heart, and then a central heart.
An image that keeps coming up for me is not only is each square a beating heart, which feels right to me, Donna, but also like a cog in a system of gears that are all connected. And whenever someone rises up to share, then that cog moves a couple of clicks, and then I could see the nearest cogs clicking along, and then the furthest cogs finally also clicking in place. Yeah, it's beautiful.
What just arose in me is kind of a tiny bit of annoyance with this realization that we're so kind of calm and peaceful and connected and kind of kumbaya and everything is nice, but the world is not so, and kind of I feel this urge to disrupt this and just kind of give a bit of a challenge and to say, hey, come on, and just see where that goes, because yeah, we're already in some kind of bubble in a way. We're all more aligned. It's easy for us, I think, to eventually talk and get an agreement of some sorts. Even if we would have very different views on particular issues, we would still be able to respect each other and talk. But we're a total minority of the world, and I just don't trust this kind of setup kind of scaling up so easily. I think it's just the easy part right now. It's important to have the easy part, but it's not always easy. And well, I don't trust this sense. It's just like it's too easy sometimes. I want to challenge. Thank you.
Yeah, imagine that we would run the same project, all of us, and we try to be in this dialogue, but there would be way more at stake for each of us. So then it becomes more difficult, and there becomes assumptions. What you said, it hurt me, and blah, 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 blah. But it's also hard to come back to this space where you could actually have new insights eventually. But you're totally right, and it could have been some part of my check-in or my framing in the beginning, but you have phases in this, and for us it's a very unnatural setting. Like, most of you never see you again, we will never be a group, but if it would be like a project team, then there's way more at stake, and then you go through phases and cycles, and you're totally right. Yeah. But we can at least exercise a bit, even when it's easy, for whenever it becomes more difficult. That's my take on it.
I was considering, like, how would we as a collective uncover where we have the most agency to direct the most positive impact or the most meaningful change. And that, and then I was almost resistant or hesitant, because I was like, well, am I forcing something that, like, I need to find a place where I can do something, this energy in me? And I was kind of feeling both those sides. But there is this sense where, like, yesterday, for no real meaningful goal, I kind of like scaled the side of a sketchy cliff. where there were like rocks kind of like sliding down and it was really loose. And I did it for the experience of like being on the edge of it. And because I felt safe enough, but I was challenged. My movement skills were challenged. And so there is this sense of me that kind of craves for the stakes to be raised, if you will. And then I'm curious, like how to choose that. When am I forcing it? When is it dangerous? When is it, and yeah, so I appreciate this question, this energy, this challenge. And then I'm wondering sort of like, well, now what? Where do I go? Where do I aim?
I'll pick up the stick.
Okay.
Sorry, Andrew. I'm not sure what's exactly there, but there's something that's just been hanging, and it has to do with the notions of groups themselves. Like, one is that there's sort of an assumption that we develop within groups. And maybe that's just true. Maybe that's just what humans do, is we gather into collectives of some type and make something happen out of that. And that feels both kind of exciting on one side, and the other side of it is, oh, there's something else that wants to come forth. Like there's more possibilities than us continuing just to gather into groups and develop, and especially develop ourselves wholly as this amazing community that can do all kinds of things. There's something, it feels missing, or just not meeting a potential. And I think there's also a little fear within me, perhaps of past experiences of groups and just not being, the polarity between the group and myself. I think that's in there, but I guess the final thing that wants to be said is this an assumption that our collective action and our collective intelligence and wisdom, and however we want to say it, insight, comes always through groups? And is there another way of spreading whatever this love making? I think that's enough. I'll put the piece back.
Wow, that's an awesome question, Kim. I'm a group probably junkie. So to hear the question of whether or not there's something that's not, and it's the me and the we, it's both, but to hear that there's something else is exciting. I really appreciated, Roland, you bringing up the what we're not noticing here, what maybe at the back of the campfire, and underscoring that you did, Ria, that it's what we have at stake. And I realize that I often don't bring what I have at stake to groups, which is my life. I really do have a lot at stake here, because this is my one and only life and my one and only time. So really appreciating, the naming of that you gave, that this is important for each one of us in a very personal way. It's not a posturing that we're often called to do in the regular world. So just appreciating that.
I think what's coming up for me is like, there's like a slight like unrest internally, and I'm kind of curious what it is. And then there's like a lot of part of me that's like attaching stories to it. just out of like pure compare contrast, there's like this like I want to get somewhere and like I want to come to conclusions, or kind of what Tyson was saying, maybe like wanting some sort of direction, or like this like energy efficiency and like optimization side comes in, and like that, like it feels just like so fluid and flowing. I'm like, let's get somewhere. And then there's also this part that's like, oh, well, like maybe this is like what you're being triggered with right now, of staying with the process and the not knowing and the discomfort, and giving that space.
Yeah, what I want to speak to is as Westerns, we're so trained to know the answers, to know the next thing, to know the plan, to know the goals. And if we don't know, it becomes an emotional tension. Like, I need the solution. We need an action. We need a decision. And in these times in the world, I think we're also invited to be able to hold a lot of intensity, and intensity can be the pain or the ugliness of what's going on, or the war, or trauma, or insecurity, or not knowing. There's all different ways of intensity. And to me, it seems that where we are in the world is really inviting us to, can we stay centered and grounded? Not on our own, but sometimes we need each other to be able to do that, because the ugliness, the uncertainty is so big, and we can hardly hold it on our own. And I guess some people mentioned the wonder and the mystery. And I think if we can hold intensity, it's easier, I think, to hold mystery and wonderment, or wondering. I don't know what's the right English word. That's an assumption that I hold. This is back.
I'm feeling like you're speaking to a question, Ria. What is the significance of what we're doing right now? I really, when Abby was speaking, I felt like I was watching her do the thing that Bonita Roy was talking about, like tracking what the activity of her mind, what she's sensing, what's she's choosing, where she's choosing to put her attention, and it sort of feels like we're in this group meditation, interactive meditation together, practicing, like all being on the side of the cliff together, like what Tyson was talking about, but it's just a little cliff, so we know we're okay. We're not gonna destroy anything together. No one's gonna fall and hurt themselves. But yeah, I'm feeling the power of this.
I'm having the sensation of everybody on the screen being like the little thoughts in my own mind when I'm trying to control my, just in preparation for meditation, a little chatter. It's sort of represented now by everybody just, riffing off each other, and sort of just, that's my experience right now.
I noticed, Tanya, when you said that it's just a small cliff, we can't really hurt ourselves. I jumped. I'm not so sure. I don't know how deep it is. My sense is I don't know where the bottom is. It might not, there might not be a bottom. And there's a desire in me to, I have a desire to move fast. The feeling of grasping that Ria mentioned, and when I don't know, is there. I can feel that. It's an aliveness in me. And the shallowness of the grasp that I feel as a collective we can dig into this doesn't satisfy the depth that I want to go. So there's a tension just there. How do I let go of my expectations and my assumptions enough to get to the depth of having a sense of what the shape of this thing is? Yeah.
I'm having thoughts right now about the idea of certainty is coming up, and of knowing and thinking that we must know. And I'm seeing or I'm thinking about the pandemic situation as almost like a reminder that the idea of being able to know it all is just an idea, sort of like an illusion. And maybe, yeah, I'm appreciating the pandemic right now for its bringing that real reminder of the wildness of existence.
What's coming up is maybe the right question makes love with the unknown.
I see you.
I'm thinking right now about a question that can be held and not needing to be answered.
Yeah. Well, that was already quite a rich exchange here. As we're coming close to the end, and sorry, I haven't followed the chat because that was too much to do. What was growing in me during the call is as I was playing with this idea of offering like 4 or 5 weeks in a row for the same group, like if people would then agree to be present in the 4 or the 5 sessions. And I was wondering if any one of you would be interested in attending. That would be nice if you could write in the chat if you're interested in attending. And if there would be 1, 2, or 3 people who would be interested in figuring out what would be the guiding question for that series, that would be a really lovely thing to do. So you can use the chat to do that, to put your name up or your email or whatever. I'm not going to read it right now. So please make sure we have the chat, Peter, doesn't disappear.
Well, we can do it another way too. People
Okay.
can just email me and then I could forward those emails to you. That might be interested. And I'd also like to say, offer the invitation again, that if you'd like to come to the Stoa on a weekly basis and do whatever you'd like to do, because this is magic here, I think we're all would welcome you with open arms. And the gift economy, I mentioned, I could put you on the gift economy website too. So if people want to give a gift to you directly for your gift, then we can do that as well.
Okay. And as closing, as a checkout round, maybe it's nice to hear from everybody, like, how are you leaving? We don't have 1 minute for each person, but like 2, 3 words or 1 sentence, or how are you leaving this call? How are you feeling? What do you take with you? Just a half sentence, a few words. That's just nice to close, and that we know from each other a tiny bit how that is.
I feel like a richer soup with more and more spice and flavor.
I feel like I'm dangling with delicious anticipation.
Feel the light and the dark are there's room for both.
Like we're in a big petri dish, and who knows what's going to pop out of it.
I'm excited about being on the cliff with everybody. No fear.
Deepening my relationship with wonder and the question of what if.
I feel there's been some movement of energy. I'm not sure how. I mean, the words transmit energy and information, but besides the words, and besides even the emotional level, there's been some kind of an energy movement.
Still uncertainty.
I'm sensing like I'm walking around in a kind of fog, and at the same time, although I'm a bit desperate and sad about it, at the same time it's kind of a warm fog, and it's embracive.
I am scared to jump, but planning to jump.
Magical melting pot.
I love being challenged. Some good challenges from people.
I feel like moving through my resistances, move my body, physically moving.
Yeah, I'm feeling very viscerally activated.
Feel like I've sprouted some curious and creeping tendrils, wandering blindly to grasp at something.
And I leave energized and excited.
I originally wanted to say that I feel fucking delicious, but then just listening to each person, my state changed and what I wanted to say changed. And what I'm experiencing right now is just a desire to ask a question, which is fucking delicious.
Feeling expanded, overwhelming sort of sense of large, subtle body.
I'm feeling like whatever that sensation is after you write in your journal.
I'm feeling like a combination of like frustration and sweetness.
I'm feeling lighter, ready, and excited.
I don't know if there's somebody else who wants to speak before we move out. If not, then we can all unmute and say bye and goeiedag or whatever language you have. And you have
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
Everybody, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Tot ziens.
Tot ziens. Oh,
That's
wow.
it.
Who was that?
Ziens.